Welcome to another installment of reading through A Course in Miracles and providing a little bit of explanation based on my understanding from studying A Course in Miracles for the past 6 years or so. So I am trying to help clarify some things for you as well as for me. And so if there are any suggestions or other insights or ideas that you may have about these topics and what I am saying today, please do mention it in the comments below. I have been working on talking about miracle principles 1 through 33 so far. I finished Miracle Principles 1 through 33, which is the very beginning of Chapter 1 of A Course in Miracles. So let us move right along, and before we do that, I am just going to say a short prayer, which is from A Course in Miracles. It may be familiar to you, it may not be, but I'm going to go ahead and start with that just to get us in the right mind frame to invite Holy Spirit to be with us as we contemplate these verses in A Course in Miracles, these principles, and as we concentrate on them, and as we focus our mind on them, let us focus on what the true meaning is behind these verses and let that come through. So with that intention, I'm going to say this prayer. I'm here only to be truly helpful. I'm here to represent Him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because He who sent me will direct me. I'm content to be wherever He wishes, knowing He goes there with me. I will be healed as I let Him teach me to heal. So that is sometimes called a statement of purpose, and really the purpose is that I am here only to be truly helpful. So under that instruction and under that frame of reference, let us begin, because I think the true meaning of all of these verses really come out with that intention of being truly helpful. Without trying to be truly helpful, or without that being our true intention, then what comes out as far as meaning will be obscured or be distorted. So let us start with miracle principle number 33. Miracles honor you because you are lovable. They dispel illusions about yourself and perceive the light in you. They thus atone for your errors by freeing you from your nightmares. By releasing your mind from the imprisonment of your illusions, they restore your sanity. So that's 4 different sentences within one principle. So let us not confuse principles with sentences, because each principle has multiple sentences, as we can see here. So let us examine this a little bit more. The first sentence, let's break this down into 4 pieces, which is that miracles honor you because you are lovable. So that sounds kind of strange, but let's just take it for face value. We don't need to overly examine that. They honor us because we are lovable. And of course, if you look at it a little bit deeply, or just refer to what a miracle is that we've read so far, is that miracles are expressions of love. And if they're expressions of love, and they come from the source of love, so the love that inspires a miracle is really the true miracle, is the love that inspires the miracle. So if miracles are expressions of love, then it explains how they honor us, because we are lovable. So expressions of love would honor those who are lovable, which is everybody in reality. And it says that miracles dispel illusions about yourself and perceive the light in you. Miracles dispel illusions about yourself and perceive the light in you. So It's another way of, it's just basically saying that miracles aren't going to change who you are, really. Miracles are not going to change who you really are. It's going to only remove the illusions that we believe in. And those illusions are the only thing that makes us feel like we're anything less than loving or lovable. Um, so, so that's all that a miracle does. It doesn't change reality, actually. And sometimes we think of miracles as being things that actually are changing reality, like something that's coming from another world and like disturbing the way reality is when we think of our previous definitions of miracles. So we might think of a miracle as being something in which some kind of physical perceptual transformation takes place. Something, maybe we think that a disease naturally would be creating damage to us, and that would be the natural course of events of the disease, and that a miracle is somehow doing something abnormal. But A Course in Miracles teaches us that miracles are natural, and when they do not occur, something has gone wrong. And it's also saying that they dispel illusions about ourselves. So even the idea that we're sick is an illusion of ourselves, and the miracle will dispel this illusion of ourselves. And all of this dispelling of illusions allows us to be healed, because we are actually lovable and loving. It says, miracles thus atone for your errors, or atone for your mistakes, or you can say undo your mistakes, or correct your mistakes. There's another, atone, when the word atone is used as a verb, like atone or atoning, it really just means undoes. And we read that earlier in a previous definition. So undoing mistakes, undoing wrong perceptions, undoing illusions, these are all ways we can use the word atoning. To undo fear, anything negative that is undone is atoning. And it makes sense in the idea of dispelling illusions. Undoing is a dispelling of an illusion. That's why it's an undoing. It's like it's saying that everything is all right. That's why we just have to undo what's wrong. It's not that we have to make what's wrong right. We just have to undo whatever is wrong, because everything is already right. So anything that seems wrong just needs to be undone, and only in our mind, really, because our mind is where the illusion is. And the illusion by nature is unreal. So really all that needs to be done is that the reality needs to be perceived, and that automatically eliminates the illusion. And so it says that miracles thus undo our errors by freeing us from our nightmares. And so the nightmares are anything negative that we believe in, and it can be as big as something like death and attack, war, all of these really heavy things, anything negative, physical abuse, anything like the idea that we could even die. Those are all the nightmares that we have. It's saying that those things are nightmares. So freeing us from our nightmares is the same as saying that it's going to dispel our illusions, because they're not real. Nightmares are not real. Illusions are not real. By releasing your mind from the imprisonment of your illusions, they restore your sanity. By releasing our mind from the imprisonment of our illusions, they restore our sanity. So it's another way of saying sanity is light. Sanity is light. Understanding, reasoning, all of these things are the light. Perceiving our holiness is the light. The truth is the light. So it's really saying that if truth is perceived, then our illusions will go away, our nightmares will go away, and everything will be restored. And that is sanity. It is sanity. Now, sanity may not sound like such an appealing thing. To our minds, maybe we think to ourselves that, well, sanity is like a base level. It's just a foundation, but, who really wants sanity. But anybody who can, if you think a little bit deeply about it, nobody wants to be insane. Nobody wants to be insane. And the definition of sanity, we may not have thought about the idea of sanity much until now. But it's also saying that when we are afraid, and when we do perceive the ideas of death and depression and anxiety and fear, all of these are part of insanity. And being sane also means understanding our eternal nature. So that is part of sanity, is understanding our eternal nature. So sanity is being elevated here to being something much greater than perhaps we think of it in regular society. Principle number 34. Miracles restore the mind to its fullness. By atoning for lack, they establish perfect protection. The Spirit's strength leaves no room for intrusions. So let's read that a little bit in a different way to make it a little clearer. It says, miracles restore the mind to its fullness. By correcting for our perception of lack, miracles establish perfect protection. The Spirit's strength leaves no room for intrusions. So it's saying miracles restore the mind to its fullness. So fullness, another word for fullness of wholeness. Wholeness. So our wholeness or fullness is something that's already there. Completeness. We are complete. We're whole. There's nothing missing from us. And so the idea of something missing from us is what creates our fear. Because if we think we're missing something, then we're likely to try to get it in some fashion. We're trying to get what we feel like we're missing. And a lot of times what we try to do when we're missing something is we try to attack. We try to attack things. We criticize things because we feel like something is missing. And I think that is why this principle says that by undoing our sense of lack, miracles establish perfect protection. The Spirit's strength leaves no room for intrusion. So when we feel like we're missing something, in a way that's a form of weakness. And when you feel weak, you are likely to attack, because weakness and attack go hand in hand. If we have a negative perception about ourselves, if we have a feeling that we are weak, this is in a sense an attack on ourselves, because we are actually very strong. We are godly. We are loving. We are strength. It says Spirit's strength leaves no room for intrusions. So anything that is unlike strength is an intrusion. So anything in our minds that seems like powerlessness, weakness, anxiety, fear, all of these things are not strength. They're different from strength. So miracles restore our mind to its wholeness. And in this wholeness, it also restores our mind to the strength of spirit. So all of these things point to that it's a restoration, because we're already okay. The mind is already complete, but we're not aware that it's complete. We're not aware that our mind is strong and whole and powerful. And I think that the power, and A Course in Miracles will say this, the power of our mind has been sort of distorted. And that's because of the very power of our mind. The distortions that we believe in become true on some level. And those distortions we believe are true because we see them around us. We see people suffer. We see ourselves suffer. We see attack. And we ourselves attack sometimes. And therefore we perceive ourselves as weak because we see the body as being weak, because the body can perish. So we do buy into this idea of weakness very strongly, because it does seem to appear very much to be true. But miracles restore our mind to its wholeness, where there is nothing like death. And so miracles bring us back to sanity. They bring us back to true perception, and will ultimately lead us beyond this ignorant notion of anything that is less than strong, less than light, less than loving. Miracle Principle 35. Miracles are expressions of love, but they may not always have observable effects. Miracles are expressions of love, but they may not always have observable effects. Let's move on to the next one. Miracles are examples of right thinking, aligning your perceptions with truth as God created it. Miracles are examples of right thinking, aligning your perceptions with truth as God created it. So sometimes we believe things are true, but the things that we believe in that are true sometimes are very negative. We believe in some negative things, like maybe about ourselves, opinions about people, opinions about worldly situations. All of these negative opinions we have about the world are not the truth as God created it, at least according to A Course in Miracles. Maybe you believe that God might have created a fearful world or a fearful universe. However, A Course in Miracles does not teach that. So let us stick with what A Course in Miracles teaches. A Course in Miracles teaches that God is love. And love extends itself, and love can only create like itself. Love creates love. So everything loving is everything that's truly loving is the truth as God created it. And anything other than that is really a misperception. It's a incorrect thinking. So miracles are examples of right thinking, aligning our perceptions with the truth as God created it. So let's remember that the truth is good. So if our ideas are not good, if the effects of our ideas are not good, ultimately, if the ultimate effects of our ideas are not good, then those ideas are incorrect. If our perceptions ultimately are not good, if they create feelings of anger, upset, sadness, anxiety, fear, attack, if that kind of perception is existing, that is not the truth as God created it. So the miracle shifts our perception in alignment with the truth as God created it. And it says, earlier, I just kind of went over this line, the previous principle, number 35, miracles are expressions of love. Miracles are expressions of love, but they may not have observable effects. So an observable effect is something that you're seeing in the world of perception. So an observable effect is something that's occurring in the outer world, but the mind is in the inner world. It's it's within us. The mind is within us. Our perceptions, the way we interpret our perceptions, that interpretation of our perception is happening within the mind. So when those interpretations are correct, when they align with the truth as God created it, that would be a miracle. And they may not have observable effects because it's internal. It's an internal shift in the way that we perceive. So people all around you may not see that change, but you will experience some sort of shift. And you may not notice it. It may not be noticeable to you. So if it's observable, it's more noticeable. And it may have observable effects as well, because the internal does affect the external. However, the internal can also just affect the internal without affecting the external, which would mean that it's not observable. So, and miracles are expressions of love. So in the next principle, when we talked about miracles are examples of right thinking, aligning your perceptions with truth as God created it, and we juxtapose that with miracles are expressions of love, then that means that right thinking is miraculous, which is an expression of love. So right thinking is an expression of love. Sanity is an expression of love. So we also go forward to miracles are examples of right thinking, aligning your perceptions with truth as God created it. And it also said that miracles are expressions of love. Therefore, the truth as God created it, and if miracles are examples of right thinking, aligning our perceptions with truth as God created it, and if it also says miracles are expressions of love, therefore the truth as God created it is also love. So that alignment would obviously be loving. The alignment of our perceptions with the truth as God created it are examples of miracles, which are expressions of love. Number 37. A miracle is a correction introduced into false thinking by me. It acts as a catalyst, breaking up erroneous perception and reorganizing it properly. This places you under the atonement principle where perception is healed. Until this has occurred, knowledge of the divine order is impossible. Again, there's 4 sentences within that principle. So lots of sentences to think about. Lots of big concepts have been woven into this principle. A miracle is a correction introduced into false thinking by me. Now, of course, when it says me, I'm reading the text. So it's not me, Anand. It's me, Jesus. It's me, the Christ mind. It's me, the Holy Spirit. That is what is introducing this right thinking into the erroneous thinking. So a miracle is a correction introduced into false thinking by me. So now is a good time for us to talk about the intermediary between God and the world and our perceptions. So if we're perceiving a fearful world, an angry world, a hostile world, if we're perceiving all of this, that's our perception of the world. And when we think that God is creating such a world, that would be incorrect. So the miracle is more seeing things the way with the truth as God created it. Aligning our perceptions with the truth as God created it is the miraculous way of looking at things, is the miraculous perception. It is right thinking. So the breaking up of false thinking, the correction introduced into false thinking, isn't really happening by God himself, because God is so powerful and so big and so transcendent beyond all of this. God is not involved in wrong thinking at all, to the point where God even has to correct wrong thinking, because it doesn't even exist. Wrong perception, false thinking doesn't exist. That's why it's false, because it doesn't exist. Anything that's false doesn't exist. Only what's true actually exists. So bringing in correct thinking into our false thinking, bringing in correct thinking into our false thinking, isn't really being done directly by God, because God is the truth. God is the pure truth, the pure knowledge of self. And that is beyond true and false perception alike. The truth is just the truth. It's like the sun is just shining. Let's say that something is blocking the light. Now you can see behind me that I have this massive amount of light coming through that window, which I hope is not terribly distracting, because it's a little bit distracting to me. Let's say I put up my hand. Now, that is blocking the light, right? So the light is still there. So God is still shining. If we look at the light or the truth as God, it's still shining, right? It's still shining. Just because my hand is there doesn't mean it's shining. Now, when it says that a miracle is a correction introduced into false thinking by me, let's just assume that this blocking of the light is the false thinking that I'm having. I falsely believe that there's no light behind my hand. That's the false thinking. Now, God is the light itself. So the light hasn't changed. It's there behind the hand. It's there. The light's there. But I believe it's not there because when I look into this image in this camera, I see that the light isn't there. My hand is here. So I can't tell that there's light there. So I believe in lots of things that aren't true because the light is the truth. So now what happens? God's shining. God's doing great. God's shining his light just fine. God's shining his light, and I can't tell. I'm blind. I can't see. Can't see the light. I don't know it exists. So then who's going to help? Because if God is shining and I'm in the dark, who's going to fix that? Where's the hope for me? If I'm blind in the dark and I need help, but God's shining his light already, I need somebody else. I need someone in the middle. And that's why it says that a miracle is a correction introduced into false thinking by me, and which it would be Jesus. So let's say this is Jesus, this finger is Jesus, and it pushes this. Boom, light. Now, that was me. I did that. I pushed it away, right? So that intermediary, I didn't create the light. I just moved the hand away from the light, which allowed me to perceive the light. So it shifted my wrong perception into correct perception, my false thinking into true thinking. The light being there is true. Me thinking the light isn't there because of my hand makes me believe in things that aren't true. Now, the amount of things that we believe because of one thing that isn't true. Just think about the number of things that disappear when it's night and we turn off the lights. Now, have they really disappeared? They've disappeared. They don't appear in our vision anymore. So in that way, they've disappeared. But have they really gone? Have the things that we cannot perceive, have they really gone away? Once a light appears, we also see all the things within the light. So in the darkness of our mind, there's lots of illusions that can be created, but they're only illusions because they only are caused by a lack of light. And that lack of light causes those illusions to have reality. But as soon as the light comes on, we can see the things in the room. Until the sun rises, we can't see what's outside. But once the sun rises, we can see that everything is there, that maybe we thought disappeared. If a child doesn't see something, sometimes they think that nothing is there, that it's all disappeared. But it hasn't disappeared. Once the light comes back up, once the sun shines, he can relax, or she can relax. That, oh, I can see everything. I was incorrect about the fact that I thought everything had disappeared, and they can, a child will just laugh it off, relax, and go, the day is here again. The sun has not disappeared, the light is back. And so the light coming back and seeing everything again and realizing that we're all safe and fine, that's the miracle. It's the correction of false thinking introduced by the Christ mind, by Jesus. Because God himself is the light. The light hasn't disappeared, but some sort of correct thinking has to be introduced in order for us to perceive the light that's already there. So the miracle acts as a catalyst, breaking up erroneous perception and reorganizing it properly. This places you under the atonement principle where perception is healed. So the atonement principle is basically love. And later on in A Course in Miracles, it is stated that the principle of atonement, the underlying principle of atonement, is love itself. And so when we are placed under the atonement principle, it really just means we're placed into love, which sees everything correctly and kindly without fear. And until we are placed under the atonement principle, the knowledge of the divine order is impossible. So as long as we're in fear of any kind, we cannot become aware or have knowledge of divine order, because fear is like darkness, and darkness literally blinds us to see what's there. So just as my hand blocked the sun here, this has made this hand, now I know that the sun is back there because I've seen it before and I trust that it's there. However, if I didn't know that, if my hand was always here, then I wouldn't know that there was light back there. And if I didn't know there was light back there, I wouldn't know that divine order is present. And so if this hand represents fear, it also represents darkness because it's blocking the light. So when the fear disappears, the light comes through, and then the warmth of that light, the love of that light, warmth is love in this case, love happens, which is the principle of atonement, is love. When love has occurred, when healing has happened, because perception is healed, now I don't feel that fear anymore, I feel love, because I don't believe in the fear anymore, because my perception has been healed. And now the knowledge of divine order has finally become possible. So I'm going to end this video now. So that's principle number 33 through principle number 37. In our next video, we'll start with principle number 38. Thank you for watching.